Sutter Health Park, the A's are in last place in the AL West.
It's still early.
Weird.
It's still early. Is it early for Michael Porter Jr.? Because he is our trade target, our trade candidate of the day. Senor Segway strikes again. That's right.
That was you didn't even try on that one.
No, well, it's Monday. It's Monday. And Whitey's not here. Segway strikes again. Whitey's not here to give
You're like, well, what if Michael Porter Jr.?
Yeah, Michael Porter Jr. Let's get right on into it. Played 77 games this past season. Obviously he was supposed to be a top pick. He ended up going 14th overall in 2018. Could have been the number one pick, but had really rough back issues out in Missouri where he played college ball. He played 77 games this season, actually scored 2 more points than his career average at 18.2 points, 7 rebounds. He's a shady good rebounder, I would say, at 7 rebounds per game, 2.1 assists, not much of a playmaker, 50% from the field, 39% from 3, 76% from free throw. You'd think that would be a little bit better based on the type of shooter he is. And for his career, 345 games, 16.2 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game, 1.4 assists per game, 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 79% from the free throw line. This season, he played 33.7 minutes per game, and that wasn't enough to get it done. He did not have a good series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm looking here at the points that he had. He did have, he had 6 points yesterday. Okay, he had 6 points yesterday in a winner-go-home game, and they went home. After that, before that, he had 10 points, 2 points, 3 points, and just that first game in overtime, he had 21. So he's really struggled here, and the Nuggets are trying to figure out where exactly it is they are going to go next. If you look at those numbers, though, initially that I just read off, that's pretty darn good. So, Allen, what's the problem? Why do they continue to dangle Michael Porter Jr. talks? Well, and I wouldn't even call him that much of a one-trick pony because he can rebound the basketball to the tune of 7 per game. But offensively, his athleticism is very confusing. I would say he signed that 5-year, $179 million deal. He's sitting at $35.8 million. That's what he got paid this season. Next season, he'll get $38.3, and he's sitting at he'll be 27 years old at that point. And then the season after that, so 2 years left on the contract, $40.8 million, 28 years old. That's what he will be when he heads into free agency. I mean, my initial thoughts, and Kyle is going to provide us with some of the different trade packages, but I definitely could be convinced. That's my initial thought on Michael Porter Jr. because the way he shoots the basketball, I think that their system is a bit confusing out there in Denver. It's so much Jokic. When I watch him, he doesn't really boogie. He's not really going to break you down off the dribble, but he has a quick trigger. To me, I mean, respectfully, I would say that Keegan is better defensively, but to me, he's almost a souped-up Keegan Murray. He shoots the ball a lot faster. He's got better athleticism. They both rebound the basketball pretty well. They both don't really play make. Who has a better handle? I feel like it's Michael Porter Jr. Either way, that's not really either of their bags. But if you can get Michael Porter Jr., I guess you could move Keegan to the 4 and kind of rock and roll from there. The big issue here is, do you think, and this is why he keeps getting dangled, do you think that he's worth $38 million?
And 2 years left on that contract.
$38 million next season, 40.8 after that. Now, if they get through next season, and if you are the Nuggets, obviously once that deal is expiring, people might say, okay, let's see what's going on here. The issue is if they're trying to act now, they might not get the value that they'd like to get because people are saying, well, look, you're trying to move on from him. You drafted, this is your dude, but and you essentially are saying he's not worth the contract. So you're going to have to pay us enough you're going to have to give us a good deal, right? It's not Zach LaVine level, but you're going to have to make it worth our while if you want it to take 2 years. When it gets to 1 year, I think the leverage will move back a little bit. 40.8 for 1 year is still a lot, but it's a lot easier on an expiring deal versus, hey, this guy is owed $79 million over the next 2 years. Please take him. Okay, well, based on what you want back, how are you going to make it worth it for me?
Yeah, and that's the tough part, that the Nuggets have to ask what they want to do, right? Because if I were Denver, what I would do this summer is I would make sure to get that to an expiring contract, whether you're getting Chris Middleton or whoever else in return. Just get that contract to a point where it expires after next year. I would risk suspension and fines and being thrown in jail to tamper with Luka Doncic and to convince him, hey, come play with Jokic and Jamal Murray. Come play with Jokic and Jamal Murray, and then make sure you get that expiring contract so you can clear $50 million in cap space for next summer. Obviously, Denver might not do that, so then they kind of have to ask themselves, how are we going to be able to compete within the margins with a contract that, kind of similar to Zach LaVine, is only tradable for like 6 other contracts in the league?
Yeah. There is a joke here with Luka and the altitude.
There is. Jokic deals with it.
Yeah. He'll get used to it. He would get used to it.
Yeah, that's the pivot for Denver. It's just like, hey, those two are like best friends. Jokic, just convince that man to come here, and we will do work to put ourselves in a position to be available for him. Because other than that, I don't know how they fix this thing, right? I don't know how they won't be able to get a player, I think, as good as Porter Jr. in a trade at this point.
But that's the thing. When you look at the numbers, and it feels like a Zach LaVine conversation, because when you look at the numbers, 18 and 7 on 39% from 3-point range, 50% from the field. He played 77 games, so availability is not much of a problem at all.
Sure, but then you take out that one game 3 of the series you mentioned, and he was 4 for 30 at the 3-point line.
Yeah. He averages 6 3-point attempts per game for his career this season. He was at 6.4. So 39% on 6.4 a game. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, he's a very good player.
So as far as the Kings are concerned, I think the issue is, I don't know. He goes 6'10", so he's taller than Keegan, but Keegan looks a little thicker to me. I don't know that either of them can really play the 4. That's the problem.
Well, Keegan played the 4 last year.
I didn't love it.
I think in this scenario, I just think it's game to game. I think it's just, those are your 2 wings. Porter will sit in the corner better than Zach LaVine does, and then you get a true scoring 2. Maybe that is Zach LaVine. We'll talk about the different options later, but maybe, you just have a scoring 2 on the wing, and 2 spot up shooting 3-point shooters who can create their own shot. Wow, that was a mouthful.
All right, let's see how Kyle says the Kings can get it done. Is there a way to still bring in a point guard not named Dennis Schroeder and make a run in the West? Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Taking you up to 2 p.m., we are taking a look at Michael Porter Jr. and how the Kings can acquire the sharpshooting swingman out there in Denver, and whether or not he is worth that money. Because it is a lot of money. But at the same time, we know it's a wing-driven league. I saw someone yesterday say, the playoffs are about wings and dudes. You got to have a dude, and you got to have wings. Right now, the Kings have neither.
Man, there was a joke right there for wings and flat-out ballers.
Yeah. There you go. Well, now that's your segue. So the Kings don't have enough wings, and I don't think they have a dude. And somebody's going to type it in right now. You can save your breath. I don't think De'Aaron was a dude on that level. I think he was more of a dude than what the Kings have now, but I think we'd still be having this conversation. The Jalen Brunson, all these guys that we used to, when De'Aaron was in Sacramento, all these guys that we used to argue that De'Aaron is as good as, all these guys have lapped him. Right. And now he's going to essentially be a Dwayne Wade type piece when LeBron joined the Heat. So we'll never really have to go back and forth on these conversations again, because De'Aaron's role is going to change. So the Jalen Brunsons, I don't know. De'Aaron, when he gets Jalen Brunson's better. Tyrese Halliburton, I don't know. Tyrese Halliburton, You could maybe still make the argument if you want and say throw De'Aaron on the Pacers and they're still here. I don't know. But I don't know how I can say that De'Aaron is better than Tyrese Halliburton right now. So all these guys have kind of, gotten a step on him. He's going to do his thing in San Antonio. He's just going to be handling things a bit differently. So you don't have wings and you don't have a dude. Well, you can at least eliminate some of this and knock one thing off, cross one thing off your checklist and get another wing. All right. So Kyle, what are the different trade packages to get this Michael Porter Jr.?
All right. So obviously we got to match the money, and the Kings have trade exceptions, but the Nuggets have a hefty price on their tax bill, so it's harder to use them correctly. The easiest one, and we've talked about this before, I think we talked about it even going back into the regular season, but Zach LaVine goes to Chicago. I think he's Zach LaVine goes to Denver, and Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji go to Sacramento, which is, Naji's not a great contract, but it makes the money match between the two, and Zach LaVine probably fits better as a number 4 in a very expensive number 4 in Denver than Michael Porter Jr. does.
Yeah, this is kind of what we discussed when it came to the Warriors. This is kind of a last-ditch effort with this crew. Zach LaVine is better than Michael Porter Jr. You're paying for it. You already kind of had Michael Porter Jr. on a bad There's actually a better situation than the Warriors because you're getting rid of a bad contract for possibly a worse contract, but the worst contract has higher upside. I think Zach LaVine has Zach LaVine can drop 40 for you randomly. Michael Porter Jr. is not doing that. At least he hasn't done that.
Yeah, I mean, LaVine is a better player, but obviously you're paying for that if you're the Nuggets to the tune of the $48 million and then $49 million player option that everyone in
47.
Sacramento, whatever. Everyone in Sacramento is eager to get out from that contract.
Yeah.
But again, if you're Denver, do you lock yourself into Zach LaVine for essentially 2 years, unless you do the, hey, opt out and we'll give you a long-term contract thing? Do you lock yourself into that? Or if you're going to move Porter, do you want an expiring contract?
Yeah. I don't know that Denver would do that. I think that the Zach LaVine thing is just tough, really tough. I think he can be a number 4 on a championship team. No, I think he can too. But do you want to pay for that? If you're Denver, I think you just talk yourself into, we can get this type of production somewhere else.
Yeah, you're saying we'll take the Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart package from the Wizards instead.
And it just is too hard to move that contract. So to answer your question, I would do it if I'm the Kings. I'd have to look at the money because you still need a point guard, but now you have a shooter's dream, and I would say even Domantas Sabonis, that type of dream, because the way he passes the basketball, you got snipers everywhere. You have Keegan Murray, you have Michael Porter Jr., right?
And you would theoretically have Keon Ellis.
You have Keon Ellis, and obviously Zach LaVine can shoot the basketball, but on top of that, what he can do, Michael Porter Jr. rebounding the basketball too. He's got to be better than Zach LaVine on defense. I mean, that's just his.
It has to be.
I know that's just literally, it's impossible not to be. So I would get you that, and then you move DeMar for a decent point guard, and I think you're on to something.
At least the roster's more balanced at that point.
It's definitely balanced. If you can get that if you can get that DeJounte Murray and he can distribute to those shooters along with Sabonis. I mean, like I said, when we post this stuff on social media, people don't have a lot of context, and we had some fun with the Valanciunas if he can start to shoot threes. And Kings Muse and a bunch of big accounts were roasting me. But the reality is, and people are like, we'll do this instead of blowing it up. Yeah, you will. This is not what I want to do. This is all caveated with the fact that they will not blow it up. This is not a dream that I think a lot of people love, right? And, to be fair, blowing it up is maybe being a bit put on a pedestal because of the Rockets and the Thunder. and the success that they've had. But this is just based on the fact that we're being told that they're not blowing it up. That's not an option right now.
Sure. And maybe to get this first deal over the line, maybe they gotta, I know you're really excited about pick 42. Maybe they gotta throw pick 42 in there.
No, we're not doing that. There are some guys, Kyle. You talk about a dude, you find a dude at 42.
I mean, you know how much Calvin Booth loves his guys drafted in the 20s and 30s. I know he's not there anymore, but
Bruce Brown, 42nd pick.
He won a championship with Denver.
That's what I'm saying. They're there.
He wasn't drafted by Denver, but he did win a championship.
We're not touching that pick.
All right, then.
Okay.
Maybe you'll like the second one a little more.
Okay, let's hear it.
Which is one where draft picks come back in return.
Okay, I'm listening.
So you have DeMar DeRozan and Malik Monk got to go out.
Okay.
Now, Denver probably doesn't have use for both of those. So we're going to have to reroute probably DeRozan somewhere else.
All right.
So here's kind of the 3-team concoction that is simplest. So Miami gets DeMar DeRozan.
Mm-hmm.
Denver ends up with Wiggins and Malik Monk. And then the Kings, so just to make it easy on people, I'm just doing DeRozan for Wiggins.
Right.
And then the Kings end up with Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, Dario Saric on an expiring contract, the Denver Nuggets 2031 first-round pick, and the Miami Heat's 2026 second-round pick. And then maybe a first-round pick swap or something. But it's essentially you give up on DeRozan and Malik for Porter, a couple of deep bench guys, and a future first-round pick. That could be super valuable if Jokic, for some reason, decides to leave, which I don't think is going to happen. So it's probably not going to be that valuable.
I don't love it, but I don't hate it, is where I'm at.
Get a couple draft picks, Porter for DeRozan and Malik.
The reality is this. Malik, his value right now is super confusing, right? It definitely took a hit, I think, in Sacramento with, some things in his control, some things not in his control. So I don't know. My initial feeling is that I don't want to move off Malik, but what if we've seen the best of Malik, which is also possible?
Also, to talk this out, Denver would then be with the rotation of Murray, Braun, who's about to get a $30 million extension,
Mm-hmm.
Wiggins, Gordon, Jokic, Malik off the bench, Peyton Watson, Julian Strother, Hunter Tyson, and all those young guys you think are all terrible.
I think that Denver wins that trade.
But that's why they're giving up an unprotected first.
Yeah, Denver for sure wins that trade. And you're the Kings. You get that unprotected first. You get Michael Porter Jr. And like we said, it's really 1 year. The next year, it's an expiring contract. So at that point, if it hasn't worked out, you can start the hybrid teardown, if you will, and somebody will take Michael Porter Jr. Because it's an expiring contract, or you just let it expire.
Or you just buy him out.
Right. So, Denver definitely, you're doing Denver a solid in hopes that they will pay it forward in some way of just not being good in 2031, which, I mean, to be fair, I don't know that Jokic is still going to be playing in 2031. I don't know that.
Well, he'll still be playing. It's just at a high level, right? He would be, 35 in 2031? I think he's probably still playing at that point. The other crazy thing about Jokic is he just never gets injured. I don't know if that's he never jumps or he never does anything like that. I just never... His arms bleed all the time, but I never hear of him getting a real serious injury.
When we return, so I guess long story short, I would do trade number 1. I would begrudgingly do trade number 2. I would do both.
But trade number 2 is more of a reach. You're not getting as good.
No, you're preparing for a probable rebuild.
Yes, you're using your biggest trade piece, which is DeRozan, to get a wing, not a point guard. Because this move is probably complemented with they sign Dennis Schroeder or they sign Chris Paul or whatever else.
There you go. On the other side, according to Chris Haynes, the Giannis domino will fall soon. Kind of. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
Bonneville International Radio Station.